What's that? Did you say one already, boy? Oh, I might go in the dark. And if I pick up something from it might be a building. I might be twisted, I might become a part of it. You can't get that on a person with home. You be part of it. Party as well. Young partners. Now everybody one place I know they're looking for
Kia ora, kia ora, kia ora, kia ora. Hello. Ka pa tēnā tātou, a tēnā tātou e piritahi nei roto i tō tātou tupu nā whare, ai mua i ngā aroaro o tātou tupuna i riri mai nei, ngā pakitaro o tō tātou whare. Tātou e whakamahana nei, ai tō tātou nohoanga i tēnei pō. Te kōrero hia i te kaupapa i mua i te aroaro o tātou e pai nei. Ka tika rā kia whakatūwhera tēnei wahanga kia tātou ki te whakamoimiti no reira kia ino i tātou. Ai roto te ingoa kaho te matua tama wairua tapu ana hera pono ko te māngai kei roto hei tautoko mai aia nei, ake nei, ai. E te māngai ngā na hera pono e te tokotoru tapu. Kia tatu mai ono koutou ki wainga nui ki tēnei whakamoimiti o mātou. Hei tātari ngā kupu katoa e whakapua ki nāne mātou i roto i tā koutou kororia-tanga. Moa koutou tini manaakitanga i whiwhi nei mātou mai o ngā rāki muri tatu mai rā ki te haoro o tēnei ahiahi. Tēnei mātou e i hoa i noi atu nei kia koe. Kia manaaki tiaki tō tātou wariki nui kuini ngā waihono i te pō e noho nei runga i te ahurewa tapu. O ti rā manaaki tiaki o tātou kaumātua pake ke tamariki mokopuna katoa. Tēnei mātou e i hoa e ngā kau tapatahi atu nei tō mātou reo whakamoimiti i raro i te tuanui o tō tātou whare a te tokanga nui anoho e tuake nei. Kia piki te ora, kia piki te kaha, kia piki te māramatanga me te rangi māri e tanga ki runga ki o tātou whānau e māwiwi ana e taimahana e tēnei wai i hoa. I te mea ko koe i hoa te ārepa te ome ko ngā mea katoa. Ka tuku atu rā e tēnei paku whakamoimeti roto i te ingoa kaho te matua, te tama, te wairua tapu me ngā karere āne hero pono. Ko te māngai kei roto e tautoko mai, aia nei, ake nei, ai. Kei mua koutou I hoa I a mātou, hei arataki I a mātou I roto I a mātou mahi katoa. Tēnei anō mātou I inoi atu nei kia koe, kia tuku a mai rā, ko tō koutou tō mairangi ata whai ki runga I a mātou. I te tīmatanga o tō tātou hui tainua rā ki tāna whakamutunga, ko te māngai kei roto e tautoko mai, ai anei, ake nei, ai.
Tēnei te mihi ake kia koe e tama, koe e hono nei te rangi ki te whenua ki te rangi, e hono nei koe I a tātou katoa, ko ta tū mai I runga I te reo karanga o tēnei o ngā hui tuatahi, e titiro atu ai tātou ki tēnei tuhinga whakataunga. Tēnei wā tuatahi, e titiro atu ai tātou. Nō reira ka nui te mihi kia koe, e whakatūwhera nei o tātou ngākau, kia iho ngā mano, ko ia te timatanga, ko ia te whakamutunga o ngā mea katoa. E whakahonore nei, te riki nui kuini ngā waihono I te pō. Tēnei tātou e pai nei, raro I te tuanui o tō tātou whare, e whakaarotia ana te uhunga nui, kua hoki ki te kōpū o Papatuanuku, ki runga o Ngāti Awa I tēnei rā, ki te kaumātua rā kia hiri ni. Ki ngā mate huhua, o te rā, o te wiki, o te marama. Tēnei tātou e tangi atu ana, he ahakoa e tangi ana I te kāinga nei, koutou e tangi mai ana I ngā hau e whā, koutou e mātakitaki mai ana I tēnei pāhotanga, I tēnei pō. Mania poto ki tai, mania poto ki uta, tēnei te mihi, tēnei te mihi. Huri, huri noa, haere mai tātou, haere mai tātou, haere mai tātou. Tēnei wā, e kui mā, e koromā, e mihi atu ana kia koutou. Kua tai mai I tēnei pō. Tēnei wā, ka tuku te rākau ki tō tātou tumu whakahaere, o tō tātou poari, o te nehenehe nui. Kia ora katoa.
Tēnā tātou I te whānau, tuatahi me te atu ki a koe a Aizi, I whakatūwhiri o tātou nākau te kupu whakamoimuti I tēnei pō. Kia ora whānau, Sammy Kaire, tumu whakarai, te nehenehe nui. I'm not going to have much to say today other than a little bit of housekeeping. So in the event of an emergency, we make our way out the exits and down into the park, or to the front of the park or at the back here. We're going to have microphones today, so if you have a pātai, please wait for the microphones to reach you, as this is an online hui as well, so whānau will want to hear. To our whānau online, we'll be taking all of the pātai as we come across, and for those that don't get their pātai answered immediately, we'll be also keeping a parking lot for us to keep track of those questions. You might notice behind you there are tables for breakout sessions, so don't get too comfortable in the current seats because we may ask you to take up a space or a place in the tables. The trustee review is here and we're going to introduce our independent facilitator, Te Aupare Juice, is going to come up and provide the whakamārama behind everything. So other than that, I'm just here to welcome my team who have come up. I'd like to thank our trustee members who are here tonight, who have come up to observe, being that they have quite a significant amount of mahi to do in the coming months as we go around and collect all these wonderful kaupapa that we're doing tonight. So I'd like to thank you all for taking the time, and as a reward there will be kai. I'd also like to make a special mention to Te Piriru, who initially volunteered to hold the hui up there, and it was on my kind of call that I asked to bring it back to Te Kūiti Pā. But we do really appreciate the fact that Te Piriru made that an opportunity, and I'd also like to thank them for picking up in the kitchen and helping out tonight as well. And that, just wanted to make that really clear to the whānau. Ngāti Rora is Ngāti Rora, so it's one place or another, but here we are tonight to share it with you, and we're blessed to have Te Piriru supporting us. So that was my little hapa there for the whānau out there wondering why we shifted spaces. It was just because we felt that tonight would be a good way to start this up here at Te Kūiti Pā, and we appreciate Shannon, by the way, and the whānau from Ngāti Rora for making Te Tokonga Nui Anoho available to us tonight. So without further ado, there's no need to hear from me, but how about another Jews? That's a joke. I'd like to invite up Te Aupare Jews to introduce herself as our independent facilitator, as a partner of Chapman Tripp. Mai te paki paki.
Kia ora mai tātou. Tuatahi e tautoko ana I ngā mihi kua mihia ki a koe e hoa. Tēnei o te reanga nei, kua tino ui roto i a koe ngā tikanga a rātou mā, ana reira, e mihi atu ana ki a koe e whakakanohi ana i rā tikanga i roto i ngā uri whakatipu. Ki a koe tagi, e tino rongo ana i te tau o te rangimarie ki te hui nei, nā hau tērā. I tō mai ki te au, kia ea ngā tikanga i te wainganui i te rā, nā reira, e rongo ana i tō tiaki me tō manaki, e mihi atu ana ki a koe i runga i tērā. Ko ai tēnei e tūnei, hiuri tēnei no Poraurangi, ko te whānau a Hinerupe, ko te whānau a Hunara era, hiuri tēnei nā tamate kapua, ko Ngāti Rangitihi tērā, ko Parikura Raureti taku Nan, he whanaunga tata ki a Anko Tiwha. Nā reira, e mihi atu ana i runga i era kāwai whakapapa a tātou. Nā reira, koe rā hau ki te taha whakapapa, tuarua he māma a hau, e toru aku tamariki, kei tāmaki, ko taku māma e te aki ana i a rātou i a hau e patu ana i ngā rori, e ako ana mō ngā marae maha me ngā whānau me ngā hapu o Ngāti Maniapoto. Nā reira, e mihi atu ana ki a tātou, ngā māma e kaha ana ki te mahi me ngā pāpā hoki, me rātou mai e te aki ana i te pāhara keke. Anā tua toru he roi a hau ki tāmaki ki Chapman Trip. So I'm here as the independent facilitator appointed by your trustees. I am a lawyer and the trust deed says that the trustees must review the trust deed within 5 years of your settlement, and it says that an independent facilitator has to be appointed to carry out that review to ensure that the views of Maniapoto whānau are heard and taken into account by your trustees. So koera te take keiko nei ahau, because your trust deed said that it needed to be done within 5 years and you had to appoint an independent person to facilitate the hui. So my role has been to work with the trustees and a subcommittee of them to come up with the questions that we wanted to ask you, and we are focusing specifically on the representation model. Hea te take e pērā ai, because the trust deed says that that has to be reviewed. The representation model must be reviewed. And that was because at the time of your PSG ratification process, I puta te whakaro me hoki anō ngā tarati ki te tiro anō ki te ratu āhua. And so we will go through what your current representation model looks like at the moment. So the focus of these first round of hui is the representation model. And we will be asking specific questions about that. Ka hiki tō tātou hui a te haurua mai te whitu, koera te wākarite te kai, ana reira me kaua ngā ringa wera e tatari. So we will be asking to focus on the questions that we're putting up. At the end, there is an open question as well, and then the team will be taking on board the feedback. Me hiki te hui te haurua mai te whitu. But if there is a requirement, to come back and have further kōrero, oh well, we can build that into the timetable, ne? But for tonight, the focus is on the questions that we would like you to provide feedback about in relation to the representation model. Oh, where? This is going. This is not meant to be doing that. Kapai. So the second point is that there's not necessarily a problem with the representation model as it currently stands. Kao. Following all of these hui, my report back to the trustees may be that there is no resounding support for change. Ne? Either the views of everybody are so vastly different that one sort of resounding voice didn't stand out, or the resounding voice is that everybody is very comfortable with the representation model as it currently stands. The alternative to that is that some people would like some changes made, or a resounding voice would like some changes made, and then we report that back up to the trustees, and the trustees take that into account. Kātahi ka hoki mai anō rātou. The trustees and Sam and his team will come back to Maniapoto. My report will be made publicly available, or available to Maniapoto members. and then they will come back to you to say, these are the changes or not that we think need to be made to the representation model, having regard to all the feedback. Ne? So the objectives of the hui tonight, one is to share that information about the trust deed review, and then two, to get your feedback to the specific questions in a workshop model. There will also be an online survey for those of you who would like to complete that, and we encourage you to do so. We haven't just sent the survey out to everybody because a few of the questions have been prepared in a way to probably antagonise, actually, and get the kōrero going and get the discussion going. And so we wanted to have hui first before we made the survey available so we could explain some of those questions. Ka pai? So at the end of the day, the key decision for the trustees when they come back to you after all of these round of hui is whether the process that you undertake to vote on your trustees needs to be changed or not. That's the key decision point. Ka pai? The trust deed review, though, is wider than just the representation model, and we're very aware of that, and we're very aware that a lot of people have a lot of thoughts about other parts of the trust deed. That will be reviewed, and Sam and his team have already undertaken a technical review of the deed that has already been considered by your trustees. They will be coming back to you about that part that we've sort of framed up as the technical review. But because the deed says they must look at the representation model, and nā te nui o tērā kaupapa, because we think that subject matter alone it'll take up the whole 2 hours, koera te take kua noho wehe e rā āhuatanga e rua. That's why we've separated them out. So we're focusing on the representation model for this round, and then the technical amendments will be done at a later stage, or the review in relation to the technical stuff. Ka pai. Mahau ene?
I said I wasn't going to be up here long, but I just got to give a little bit of the context for where we are right now. So the establishment of the Maniapoto Māori Trust Board was done in, as you'll see in a little bit, at the end of 1987, fully up and running by 88. In 2010 to 2012, the Waipa settlement river settlement was completed, with Ngā Wai o Maniapoto being received into royal assent. By 2016, Maniapoto sought the mandate, in which it was to bring together the one entity to represent it as it does its settlement. From there, the initial deed of settlement was created by 2020 and then ratified in 2021. And at that point, the Maniapoto claim was settled with the Crown, and the establishment of Te Nehe Nui was stood up in 2022. That was November 24th, 2022. And then Te Kawe Rukuro, which is the Maniapoto strategy, was launched in March 31, 2023. So that's just giving a little bit of context there in terms of how the process has gone from 1988 through till today. Mm-hmm. And then the Te Nehe Nui strategy, Te Kawe Rukuro, covers off the punga phase, the tumutumu, and then the rukuro itself. The punga phase obviously being the part where we start building the anchor. The base is then created from tumutumu, and the rukuro is the deep dive that goes in from there. To underpin that, the first 5 years we're focusing on hauora, akanui, taiao, whanake and mātauranga. Those are the key 5 core focuses that we build towards as we're doing all the mahi in the background. And then we've used the values that were extracted from the Kawinata of 1904, which is ture, kotahitanga, whakapono, aroha, and Māoritanga. And hopefully we'll utilise those values as we go through this trustee review as well. And then finally, just in finishing, we have Waihukurangi, which is the charitable entity that was stood up, our mata for our people. And then we have our mata, which is our commercial entity, which is Ahuahu. So that just gives a little bit of a nutshell, and we'll do a bit more of this when it comes to the Hui Atau this year as we get around. Some of the mahi that we've been looking at this year, though, has been around Te Kiri, which we've spoken to at great length. Those are the 40 homes we're developing, and if you've been up on Mangarino over by Esplanade, you'll see the works that are going on up there. We've also been able to deliver a Hauora and Mātauranga strategy, which has been pivotal in some of the relationships we've created with the Crown. We've got our Kaumātua preventative health insurance that's out there for those who are 65 and older. We've got marae insurance now being shared with our whānau, which is seeing 38 to 52% decrease in the insurance costs for marae. 10% of our contracts now, so with Matakumia, which is our business partnership program for procurement, we've brought Maniapoto businesses into that, and we're utilising that for things like Te Kiri and other projects that we've got underway. We have an opportunity with ACC where we're working with them around preventative solutions, especially around the first 300 days post-pregnancy. We've got our DSPs, so we're in the final tranche of our deferred selection properties, which I see we've got a couple more being sold this month that'll go out to our iwi members, which we've made available, which is one of the commitments we made. Our SIPO, which is 6 to 7%, it's gone from 6 to 7% now, and that's basically the investment objectives that we set up and determine how we go about in the investment of the money that we have or been charged to look after, and we'll do a big kōrero on that at the Hui Ato this year. And then we've got the 8 councils, so we've got the northern councils, which comprised of Waitomo, Otarahanga, Waipa, Waikato and Waikato Regional Council, and then we have Ruapehu Horizons and Taranaki Regional Council in the southern area. Whoops. Go back. And then finally we have our attendance services contract, which we've picked up and helping support our challenged youth that are making it into school, and we're seeing incredible results from that from our team. So we've been doing a bit of mahi in the background, and very grateful to our kaimahi that get stuck into that. But what we'll do now is we'll flick it over to a bit of a kōrero from Matua Dan Te Kanua and Honourable Nanaia Mahuta, and then after that Te Aupari will be back.
We set up in 1980-81 the Maipic Trust and found that we needed a Maori authority. So that led to the set up of the Trust Board, and of course we had to get our head around as a tribe how that was to be structured. And all the stats showed us that at that time 80% of our people didn't live in the Rohe, and the concern was that we need a fair way of ensuring that the haukainga were well represented on a board, that it wasn't outnumbered by those who lived away. But we ended up, I identified 6 regions that we could work with, that the marae would then affiliate to those regions. And I think we had a hui about that in October 1987, which to my surprise they just adopted with little change and minor amendments to the names that I had given to the 6 regions. And I think it was in 2011 the 7th region, which was Kawhia Mona, came into being. When I look back in Maniapoto, there was no previous iwi formal organisation, particularly one to be recognised by the Crown. But I leaned heavily on the Kaumātua, Rua Anderson, Bob Emery, Tuke Tere, John Davis. I used to take my hit team to every hui, and it was bloody great. They used to come in and lay down what the kaupapa was and what they expected, and then used to call on me to provide the details. So I felt really, really protected by the kaumātua that they did. And it was just total support. I just had no resistance. It was a lot easier setting up that based on the kaumātua being involved. It was designed to ensure that everyone was included. There's no exclusions at all. that everyone had at least one way to participate.
When I reflect on the settlement negotiations, I reflect on the period just before I was asked to come in, and a mandating process had taken place. It was quite a contested time and challenging for those who were stewarding through the mandate. So the Maniapoto Māori Trust Board eventually were affirmed as holding the mandate for the negotiations. A team was set up to interview potential negotiators, of which I was encouraged to apply, but in our Māori I was voluntold, dear, you better put your name forward. So during that time we started to look at all the submissions that went to the tribunal and understand from within the rohe what were the aspirations, and certainly get direction from the Trust Board about how the settlement could achieve to create prosperity, sustainability for the iwi going forward. We had a technical team at the time and they were kaumātua. The structure, which was consulted on, largely mirrored the inheritance of what the Trust Board structure was. And if you can appreciate that moving towards settlement is always a really challenging kind of space. But like our tupuna, when they set forth, on a journey, if their forecasting was slightly kind of out, they weren't afraid to adjust the course in order to get to where they needed to go. And that's kind of like the journey we're taking. Really the whole aim of the review mechanism is to give ourselves an opportunity to reflect, review and adjust. Structurally, the transition from Trust Board to the PSGE, transition from pre-settlement to settlement to post-settlement required a review mechanisms, and so it gave us an opportunity to look at ourselves and say, are we where we thought we would be? And if we are, what does moving forward look like? It's when we consider 90% of our whānau live outside of the rohe. In the rohe, representation is important, but more and more when there's an expectation to ensure that the settlement is relevant to the needs of our whānau today. Again, we might want to reconsider those elements of effective representation at a governance level, and importantly, how that relates to the whole of the iwi and our kaitiaki responsibilities that reside within our rohe of Te Nehene Henui. I think we have to ask ourselves, are we fit for purpose? Are we a sustainable governance entity for the way in which the needs of the current generation and the future generation require us to be? And we shouldn't be afraid to ask that question and then answer it and then do something about it.
Are we a sustainable representation model? That was how Nanaia posed the question. So this is your current representation model. 14 trustees on your board, and legally they all have the same legal duties to the iwi members of Maniapoto. So they come to the table with the context of, the whare, if they have come through the kuratau. But once they are there at the table, they're making decisions in the best interest of all of the Maniapoto whānau and hapu members. Currently, the majority is held by the kuratau trustees, and there is also currently a 9-year max. So a person can be a trustee for 3 + 3 + 3 terms. Elections are held every 3 years for an individual. And once they've done that 3 + 3 + 3, there's a mandatory stand-down period. So that is the current model. So you have 7 kuratau, 6 kurarere, and a kura kaumātua. The intern trustee is, I guess, what we consider to be separate from the trust board. that person is there to learn, ask questions, understand, but they aren't a sort of a full-blown trustee like the rest of them, and so therefore they have different responsibilities. Kaire rātou e kaui ana I te haipapa, like the full-blown trustees. They don't have the same duties and responsibilities, and the reason for that is because you want them there to be learning about the role as opposed to carrying the weight of those decisions. So these are your whare with the different marae under each one. As Matua Dan talked about, that's been in place for a very long time. We are not looking at whether the marae are sitting in the right whare. I understand there are very varied views about that. And we're also not looking at whether the trustees are distributing sufficient funds to the whare for the kaitiaki mahi that they are carrying out. Ne? He kōrero anō tērā. What we're really focusing on tonight is, and this is actually question one, kia puta koutou ki ngā tēpu, do you agree with the current kura-tau model? So do you agree that there should be 7 whare and each whare should appoint a trustee? Kei te tika tērā, ka re rānei. So that's the starting point. Or should there be a different way of grouping together or clustering together or appointing the voice of te haukainga, ngā tāngata e noho ana kiko nei, ngā marae? Is the whare the right model to get to trustees, or do you think there's an alternative? If you like the whare model, do you like the way the rōpū whakahaere gets appointed? So at the moment, each marae in a whare gets to put 2 people up onto the rōpū whakahaere. Kei te whakaira nei koe ki tērā. And then once you are a member of that rōpū whakahaere, then that rōpū whakahaere effectively decides who amongst them will put their hand up to be a trustee. If there's only one person on that rōpū whakahaere who wants to be a trustee, oh well, kua mana, then that person goes through. If there's more than one person in a rōpū whakahaere that wants to put their hand up to be a trustee, then it will go to an election of the maniapoto members that have chosen that whare as their primary whare. Ne? So tētai o ngā pātai is, do you agree with that process? Have you participated in it? Kei te tika rānei, mena kaere koe te whakai. Are there some tweaks or improvements that could be made to that process? Ne? So that is how your kura-tau trustees get appointed, e whitu o rātou. And then you have 6 kurarere. At the moment, a kurarere trustee, so everybody has to be from Maniapoto, and then a person can be nominated from another iwi member. You don't have to be nominated through a marae hui. You can just have your cousin nominate you, ne? Koira, and then everybody gets to vote, and the top 6 kurarere trustees go through. So kei te whakaira nei koe ki tērā. And then you also have a kura kaumātua. And so te rōpū kaumātua puts forward this person to be the trustee. And the role of that kura kaumātua, in addition, I guess, to being a trustee on that trust, is also to advise on matters about tikanga reo me ngā kawa o Maniapoto. Hoi anō, kua rongo hoki tātou, kei roto ia Maniapoto ētahi atu rangatira I mōhio ana ki ēnei mea. Other trustees also, carry the knowledge of our tikanga, of our reo, of your Maniapoto history. This automatic timing show, we might have to get te whakararu I au. Ka kaue hoki a Dagi I tērā, he's in the office. So e hara ko te mea ma te kura kaumātua noi ho tēnei, ne? But it is referred to in the trustee that is one of the roles of the kura kaumātua. So that is how your current elected representatives are made up. So, koe nei te pātai tuatahi. This is the first question. And the question is, how should Kūrātau trustees be elected? So when you get sent the survey, when Shah sends out the survey, the question will be, how should Kūrātau trustees be elected? And the reason why we haven't sent it out yet is because of all this context, ne? So the sort of whakaaro we're looking for is that in your whare, when you think about your whare, kei te pai rānei ki a koe, do you like the process that is currently undertaken to get to a trustee for your whare? Do you think that the whare are the appropriate way to cluster the marae, or is there an alternative way that would better represent the at-home voice? And so we've just put up some examples here. So example 1, status quo prevails. Kare e panoni stays exactly the same. Example 2 is that each rōpū whakahaere must put forward at least 2 members as an option for the trustee, to give people the option to go to a vote. Because at the moment, if only one person puts their hand up, kua mana tērā tangata. So, example 2 is a potential tweak, could be a requirement that amongst the rōpū whakahaere, at least 2 people need to put their hand up. And then example 3 is that we don't use the whare model anymore, and someone dreams up an alternative to that. Now, to be honest, we rang, we were doing, dreaming up how to come up with examples or alternatives and things like that. We looked at other PSGEs and what's publicly available, but we're very conscious that each rōpū is informed by hui that they held like this, either when their PSG was being ratified or at the review point. And so just looking at someone else's model online doesn't give you the context of why they ended up where they are. Ne? And we spoke to Papa Tom and said, is there an alternative way that you could whakarōpū i ngā marae, clusters, could you get from 7 down to something smaller? And he responded to our question, but not in a way that gave us a clear kind of silver bullet alternative to the whare model. So the question is, how should Kūrātau trustees elected? You can answer that however you like. And so what we would like you to do is whakawehewehe ki ngā tēpū, and then nominate someone to write down the responses from the people on your table. And if there is sort of one answer and everybody agrees with it, well then, note that answer, and then we'll get someone to sort of report back on the different things you talked about at your tēpū when you considered these pātai. Yeah? And then we will keep an eye on the time, and the working group will kind of roam around and just check that everybody kei te marama to what's happening, and then we will get the mics to go around and get someone to give us feedback in relation to that pātai. Ka pai? Then we'll roll through, and then we've got more pātai to roll through after this. And at the end, there will be a pātai which is what else. So if we haven't covered something and you really want to cover it, then we will have time at the end to address that. Ka pai?
Is this going to be the only feedback, or can we put feedback in after the online and
Yeah. So, no.
know, if you want to ask so we're not being used as well.
I'll take a photo.
Literally the fire poured up, I tried to wait for the coast, when you're out, you can be to that. See, we got Carlo and Walker.
We were just talking about that too.
There's an application to say a myth for consent to overtime. And of course, the bottom there's a quite different one and I just think like a myth under the rules. And that's the basic structure of these particular company. So basically anything to do with the myth, we do not have the delegation of authority.
That's the current one. And then there's the option D, which is
we try to be more active on the quality stuff. So that we as a private company, corporation, don't make it and we take it in branches where we provide Are you happy with this?
Kia ora, kia ora. Rua miniti. They're not listening. I need like a bell. Account,
Anyway, we're back here. I think I want to keep it paid. The other one has been extra, but they don't have He's a probably broken. Okay.
Kapai, kapai. Okay, pātai tuatahi. So, Shah's got the microphone. So each table, we're going to get you to summarise the kōrero from your table about this question. Someone in our team will be making notes. Kapai, who wants to start? Me tīmata ki hea. Oh, ki muri nei. Oh, me whakamahi te, just for the people on the live stream.
Testing. Okay, so we just had a look at the list of, what is it? Hau, wa, uru, Kūiti, just say, and the various pā that are related to that, and the representatives that we are supposed to select. What I'm saying is, Why don't you leave it as a task of the trustees that when they become voted in, they know that part of their task is to take on this position. Everything else, yeah, make the list smaller as we go out, vote between the various part of the speaker. But I think when you keep making little groups and little subsections, the people get hoha and confused. So if you could just leave it to the task of the trustees. That's all. And we all agreed.
Hi, Mum. We had a look at the questions and we just said Paiana for the first one. It's transparent enough. It was explained well. For question 2, Paiana as well. Why change something that is working currently and hasn't had its chance to marinate, to have its chance to see how it works? So the status quo with no change.
I did hear your thing about the trustees. The problem I have with that is that our people are then cut out of voting. Okay, at least when we go out to the marae, our people there vote for the people that they know who know their area. And we're losing the amount of knowledge in our own areas as it is because everyone moves out because there's no jobs. Okay, so to me, we've got to keep our people home. And if we have our people home and they're voting for it and start to participate, then we get the growth with our people at home. We have too many problems when you sit here and you look at the people and they go, oh yeah, but they don't live here. They just come home and visit. But everyone else here is doing all the hard mahi. So we need to start getting people home. I quite agree with the process. We all pretty much agree that the status quo. The issue we have is that these poor people who get stuck in there, who don't get voted in as a trustee, have a shitload of work that they're doing. And if they've got jobs, they can't do half of it. So to me, we've got 14 blooming trustees. Get rid of half of them and pay these people who come from the kura to do the work. Okay? Because then they're actually down there and they can actually focus on what they're doing. They're expected to go to these different meetings so they know what's going on, and they've got to pull it out from their jobs. And who's subsidising their family? They're still trying to put food on the plate for their kids. So let's keep it simple, but make it easier for those guys who are doing, guys and ladies who are doing their work. Okay, because the more they can get in there, and I mean, our one who's out there, Mary Tapu, she's always on the go out there doing something. I don't think she does any of her work, her real work, but she, you talk to her and she says, oh yeah, well I have to move my stuff around so that she can go and do the work for us. And she's not getting recompensed. That's wrong. Yeah, so that's my point of view. Anybody else?
Tēnā koe.
Artificial intelligence.
Ki hei nei. Tēnei te puki muri?
Summarise.
Kia ora tātou. The mana of the marae must not be undermined by a Pākehā system of democracy.
Come on, cabbage patch kid. Come on, Mr. Tikanawa.
Kia ora. Well, thank you for the endorsement. That just brings to mind that just about 40 years ago, in October 1986, this issue arose for the first time, and there was no solution. And we were so pohara then, we had to have our iwi hui after lunch, so we didn't have to put on a kai. But the hui that we had in October 86 was to determine how we're going to be represented. We knew we had over 50 maraes across Maniaporo, so we couldn't have 50 people sitting around the table. So we had to figure out some cluster, but there was no basis to determine. So I will confess tonight that the process was I pulled out a map, and out of frustration because the hui was about to start, I just put a circle around Tikawiti and then put 5 other areas around it, and then chuck some names onto it, which were the names that, to my surprise, was adopted by the hui. I would not have been surprised if that was the last day of my life, because I thought I was going to get crucified. But the people were of a mood, they wanted to get on and do the business. And they recognised that their marae, the mana of their marae was being recognised in a way that was comfortable with them. And of all the marae, there was only one marae that opted to be in a different region. That was Te Kauai, who opted out of the Tōkanga region to go into what was the Hauauru region. And Bob Koreheke got up and asked that the name be changed to Hauauru Kūiti. So that's the origin of it. And then they all broke up in the workshop. There were pine trees out there, and they all sat under it, and they made their decisions. It was one day, one hui, after lunch. They made those decisions. So what it witnessed for me was the marae were exercising their mana to make decisions for themselves. And that's something that I wouldn't like to see changed. Because the stats at that time, there were 80% of Maniapoto were living outside the area. And if they were to lose their mana whakahaere to votes of people scattered all across New Zealand, then that to me would be a sad day. So the mana of the marae is important, as has been mentioned before. And I guess when you address the issue of representation, I am aware that when we went through the treaty settlements process, the Crown had a great influence in shaping what was done. And one of the things they voted on, they forced an election to vote in or out the Kingitanga rep.
That's right.
And my personal view has always been that now is the time for the mana of the iwi to be exercised to put in place what they want, not what the Crown wants. So when we listened to the whai kōrero this morning, or tonight, the first mention was ngā wai hono te pō.
Yeah, right.
So we recognise that relationship straight away. That's the first thing we do. When you go up to Hangatiki, Haudu are there, we even got a monument stone that reminds us that Te Whero, after refusing twice to accept the mantle of Kingitanga, said he wouldn't accept it unless he had the consent of his cousins. And that's why he came to Haurua. So I think we've got to be very careful in how we represent ourselves in a way that reflects our history and our mana. And I'm not a fan of following Pākehā patterns. I think we've got our own way. Is that all? Do you want to talk about ice cream or something?
Kia ora, matua Dan. And mō ngā tangata e hiahi ana ki te kōrero ki tērā kaupapa o te kingitanga. There is an opportunity to address that at the end of the slides, please. Nā reira, ko rongo i a koe matua Dan, hoi anō, e tino hiahi ana ka aro tātou ki tēnei pātai hei tīmatanga, so we can get through and then we'll open up the kōrero for that one. We will allow time for it. Okay, tēnei tēpū.
So this tēpū, kia ora, is in favour of example 1, status quo, but they did put down, are whānau really aware of what the actual roles are in terms of trustee responsibility. And then I just wanted to probably add on to the whakaaro, the kōrero that's been talked about around kuratau and kurarere. At the moment, our structure is that the kurarere hold bigger numbers than kuratau. So mana motu hake almost sits outside of, outside of home. Oh yeah, so it's a higher ratio of number. I think to support the mana motu hake, we really need to look at how many numbers sit in our kuratau. If that's how we want to bring the mana motu hake home to in-house in terms of our marae and our people standing up in those roles as trustees and kaitiaki of our hitori and our whakapapa. Kia ora.
Oh, kia ora. We had a very lively table. Some of us actually supported the current model, and there's nothing wrong with the model. My concern is that the current model still, if we talk of mana motu hake, the current model still actually is fractured in that all marae are trustees and they're assigned to the Māori Land Court, which is essentially assigned to the Crown. So I just want to think beyond today. If we have a review every 5 years, then the current model can stand. But if we're actually putting together something that is permanent, then I think that we've been a bit too simple in the way in which we actually have practiced in terms of the marae. The assumption that trustees on a marae or the marae is nothing. I'm being timed. The marae is nothing unless you have a connection with the whenua. And when you have a connection with the whenua, then you actually recognise the hapu, and in recognising the hapu, you recognise the whānau. And here, Te Tōkanga Nui is internal, so essentially it's within rural space. Whereas at Marakopa, you've got the coastlines, you've got other marae by lakes, and I think we need to actually sort of make sure that when we're looking at these models, that there's some truly active placement going down, so that the person that becomes the trustee truly represents all the different marae and where they're subjected to on the landscape. Is that a minute over?
Yes. Ka pai. Yeah. Rawe era whakaro. Ka pai. Oh, well, thank you, everybody. Ka pai. Next pātai. So, currently your model is 7 kuratau, 6 kurarere, and 1 kaumātua, ne? Ka te kauma whā. So this question is saying, should the status quo continue that the majority remain kuratau? Should the majority still be kuratau? Or should you flip it and have the majority kurarere? Or do you not really mind where the numbers land at the end of the day, because once a person becomes a trustee, they're acting for the benefit of all of Maniapoto. So I guess what this question is really getting at is there a strong view that the majority needs to remain with kuratau? Now, keeping in mind that when the trust board was dreamed up by Matua Dan and his hit team, as he referred to them, it was 6 and 6 near Matua Dan, kei te tika tērā, because Kāwhia came in as a whare later on. So back then, the wisdom of that rōpū was equal, was 6 and 6. Now it is 7-6. So this question is really getting at, is there a strong view that the majority must stay with kuratau, or do people not really mind where the numbers land? Because we do have a numbers question later as well. Ka pai, that's the question. So hopefully it's quite simple and we won't need as much time to wānanga as we did for the last one. Ka pai? Who's got the mic? He pātai kei konei.
Tēnā rā tātou, tēnā rā koe. Before that decision is made, can you enlighten us on, which I agree with Danny about the kingitanga representation, which I would like that to be noted and seen and put through in support of Danny and etc. However, what I'm getting at is those spaces could change, in which we've already talked about at a hui prior. So can it be sort of enlighten us as to where that would sit? Because it could reduce an area, and it may not. But can you enlighten us on that?
So the enlightenment is that it will be up to your trustees to take into account all the kōrero, and then they will come back to you with a proposal taking into account what we've heard from the hui, including whether you think the numbers are too big and should be smaller, and if there's strong support for change, then they will factor that into the numbers. So at the moment, I can't say how the makeup would be, because this is our first consultation hui, but these are all decision points that the trustees will take into account and factor in. Right? All right. How te wā? Ka toru meneti noi hone ki tēnei pātai. So 6:45 ka tangi te pere. Ka pai. Okay, ka huri rauna te mihini kōrero, kei tēnei tepu, ka huri pēnei, tēnei wā, ne? Tīmata ki konei.
Kia koe te whānau. This structure was set up years ago. It's working. I think that we do need a kingitanga representative, otherwise no one's going to report back. I say we stick with the current module.
Kia ora, our tipu has had a kōrero. We've chosen majority kōrero. 100%.
We're not fussy. Yeah. So long as the mana of the haukainga is protected.
Tēnā tātou. Our rōpū has chosen to stick with majority kūrero. But one thing that I'd also like to add is this kōrero around we're all the same people, whether you live in the district or outside of the district. Although kūrero represent our marae and kūrerere are generally elected, we're all the same. So I think, my little 5 cents, if we can maybe stop comparing ourselves to living at home and living away, although I understand matua, the responsibility that comes with being ahika and the mahi that it takes to be able to make sure that the fires are still burning at home. But again, we're all the same.
Kia ora whānau. We're just in agreeance of everyone, but we did have a little discussion over here to start with, but just listening to Te Miri's kōrero, we've decided to go her way, which is majority with kūrero.
Yeah, tautoko ngā koro.
Ka wai. Oh, tino wai. Oh, mama tēnei. All right. Nā te mea he ahua mama tērā, ka whiua ki tētai pātai kia hihiko I te wairua ne. Ka pai. So this pātai is around the kura kaumātua. At the moment, the kura kaumātua is a full trustee like everyone else. So they have full duties, full voting rights, full responsibility. So this question is, mena rānei kei te tika tērā. Kei te tika tērā kia kaue te kura kaumātua I tērā haipapa, or should there be a change to the kura kaumātua to be an advisory trustee, carrying the role of an advisor on tikanga hitori e rā mea. So this question is intentionally written this way to get feedback. So mena kei te rongo koe I te ihi, pai tērā, whaka kōrero mai I tērā ihi, kia rangona. We have had feedback that, kaumātua have been carrying this forever, so why would we change it now? So, yeah, mena kei te whakaro pērā koutou, oh well, kōrero mai, kia rongo, so that your trustees hear your views on the kura kaumātua. Ne? That is the purpose of this question. You have a kura kaumātua. Do you think that is appropriate? And do you want to keep that role there. And then if you have any other thoughts about the kura kaumātua and the way that that person becomes onto the trustee, you can also elaborate on that. So the key whakaaro is, how whakaaro mo te kura kaumātua, should there still be one? Do you have any thoughts about the role? And I guess the sort of job description isn't the right term, but yeah, the role of that person. And then do you have any thoughts about how somebody becomes the kura kaumātua, the representative, to hold that role? Now, maha o ngā kuiawenga kraua kei konei I tai mai ki te hui o te rōpu kaumātua, nā reira I mōhio ana ka rangona I e rā kōrero. Again, that's the intention of it, to hear your views and report those back to the trustees. Ka pai? All right. Toru miniti pēr nā te mea terapia ka tere.
What do you think that the outcome should definitely be disinvited? I think because they know you need wisely. I've seen it with Uncle Tom coming on, but he might be more thinking to do with some cut out I don't cover white cut things that up with the next coming back here. But I do need a private not as advice. Hey, recognition of time, and then they get the bond.
That's the key of whether they should get the vote. Getting paid, I think they need to get paid too. The reason for the question is when you get the vote, you also get the liability.
Yeah. Also insurance.
So they have to read everything as well.
Some of them would have went through the process to do the agreement post-government team. And they would have linked those ones that already been through. Eventually they got it out there. You know, it's too much of a it's all to do with the those you've got to have those things. And you get paid for this. That's why
Ka pai. All right. Ka tīmata ki tēnei kokonga, ana ka huriro nā pērā. Testing. Oh, ki konei.
MPI. Oh, hey, go.
Yes, testing. Ahoro tēnei tēku ana ko te roku kaumātu representative, be a trustee with legal duties, liabilities and a vote.
Ka pai. Oh, okay.
You can earn that stuff out there.
Engari me rango na ngā kōrero.
Kia ora whānau. We had a bit of a big discussion over here, but however we've come back to this. What is the status of a kaumātua for this position?
We had two whakaaro. So we had some of us are saying to stick with what it looks like. Others are saying to move the position to an advisory position, but rather than have the one, have two. Similar to Auntie Pols's kōrero as well around what defines a kaumātua. We understand that 65 years and older is the line. And then some of the whakaaro was around whether it's too much for the kaumātua to look after in terms of kawatikanga and reo, I think I heard you say far. How come it isn't distributed to the other 14?
Well, I think it's important for us to remind ourselves of why we ended up with a kaumātua rep on the trust board. And it was back on the stats again that The kaumātua, the 65 and over, were only about 5% of our voting population, so they can get drowned out. So it was appropriate that kaumātua had a voice at the table of the decision-making for the iwi. So one, we support what Barney said, that remain. The second thing, I'd hate to see that go to an election, that it be appointed by the Te Māori or Maniapoto in their decision that who they would appoint. So the two appointments would be, or the appointments would be for Kingitanga rep by the Kingitanga, and kaumātua appoint the kaumātua rep. And of course with the whare, they had the mana to appoint who they sit around the board. I mean, a board is a Pākehā construction anyway, and what we should be more dedicated to is maintaining the mana and tikanga of our people. Otherwise, we're no different from any corporate body. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Our table just talked about I suppose the concern around the liabilities that a trustee role holds for our kaumātua. But yeah, other than that, that's all we really talked about.
Our group decided, firstly, we don't want to reduce the trustee number, and the kaumātua rep must have voting rights, and we need a kaumātua rep for their mōhiotanga, their kawa, their tikanga, and plus 65.
Kapai. Kapai. Kia ora. Okay. Tino tere, tino koe ngā hene ngaro. All right, so we hear many kōrero around this, around the number of trustees. And so, and we've heard, Matua Dan saying we shouldn't be constrained by Pākehā thinking that 7 is the optimal number, when the purpose of this group is to provide representation, appropriate representation across the breadth of Ngāti Maniapoto. However, this is something that comes up a lot, that there are people that say, oh, the board is too big, or, oh, etahi wera tangata Momo wā tō rātou noho ki reira, me ti haere. And so the purpose of this question is to flush that out again. So simple question, how many trustees do you think should be on the board? But really what we're getting at is do you have an issue with the number or not? And so if the status quo prevails, then the number stays at 14. Are you comfortable with that? If you think the number should be less because you just have a view on that, and many people do have a view on that, then how would you cut it? How would you get it down to less? Keeping in mind what you have already thought about in terms of kuratau, whare, e rā mea. And if you think the number should be less, then how would you construct it to also provide for, if you think there should be an extra kingitanga seat, te mea, te mea, te mea. So the purpose of this question is to really kind of test in your puku if you have an issue with the number or not. Because safe to say there's a lot of inconsistency out there around this. So people say, oh, the board's too big. And you go, okay, well, let's cut it down. How you cut it down? Well, no, we need 7 whare. Okay, well, then you have 7 whare. Oh, no, but we need kurarere because we've got 80%, 90%, however many outside. Okay. Well, then you get rid of the kura kaumātua there. Oh, no, ka, mea mau te kura kaumātua. Oh, but then you add on a kingitanga seat. Well, then you don't want less, do you? So That's the purpose of this question, is to really test in your puku if you have an issue with the number, or if you have a strong view about the role of this board and representation, and then any inefficiencies that do arise by having lots of people on a board, that gets managed in other ways. That gets managed by, really good board papers being served up by Sam and his management team. That gets managed by the way a meeting gets chaired. That gets managed because everybody is very well prepared for their hui. They've read their papers. They understand that they're going to be making decisions. They don't take up too much space at the hui. So, koera te take o tēnei pātai. It's 7:05. Nā reira, karima meneti ki tēnei pātai, and then we do have another question after this, so we're doing well. Ka pai.
This is like lotteries. Going forward, we've got 2 semi-guns. You after the good already, Chairman's been asking for Talk about that if they pulled out and somebody can push it around. They rather the figure of 6 came from the trustees. I see, so that was the idea that 6 because it's general. Maybe to cut it apart, rather than them representing whatever. I see them, those people, those that are coming,
Ka pai, korite tēnei te pū. All right, kei hanga mics. Sam, korite tēnei te pū.
Kia ora. Kia ora te whānau. Maniapoto in the last census, 57,000 people indicated their allegiance to Maniapoto. Not to Nehinui, to Maniapoto. Okay? And we must keep the widest representation. We should not reduce the numbers. Okay? It's about democracy and we keep the numbers. If anything, we should use the online ability to keep contact with our people all over the place. And we shouldn't have to go and have hui like going all around the country having hui like this, because AI's just come into play. It's going to make a hell of a difference in the future. The Maniapoto iwi is going to grow. If we're 57,000 in the next 10 or 30 years, it's going to be a lot bigger, isn't it? So let's not reduce our numbers. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora, tautoko. Our table is in favour that it remains the same. 14 is a good number. We did have a little korero numbers. What would that look like in terms of, having a quorum and all that stuff? So we thought, 14 was a good figure. Kia ora.
Kia ora, 14 plus 1. But we need to make sure that we elect trustees who are capable of working for us. Nami.
No.
Are you saying it's
consensus?
Not for themselves. Don't make it a career.
Kia ora. We've got 7 korotau, 1 kaumātua, 1 kora kingitanga, and 5 kororere. That's how our structure went. But somebody wants to say something else and put something else in there. I'll add it in. She'll add it in.
We've gone with the 14+1, which is the one being the nomination for the kingitanga, which we feel should be selected by the iwi.
We've had quite a few discussions here. It depends on what happens with the kingitanga, whether he comes on as an advisor or as a trustee with a vote. And that's something that would need to be decided. But I tend to like the having the 5 kūrerere, but there's also the fact that there's a lot of skills out there. But they're all related to a kūrutau anyway. So they could go that way.
Oh, rawe e nei kōrero. Okay. This question. Kā te wā? Me tere toki tēnei. 7:15. So, should people be restricted with this 9-year max? So, do you think that the 9-year max is good? Or do you think that you should get rid of it and allow someone to be on the trust board for more than 9 years? Yeah? So currently your trust deed says someone can only be there for 3 + 3 + 3, then they must step aside. Kei te whakaira nei koe ki tērā. So simple question. You can elaborate on your why if you like to, or you can just answer, ai kaora nei. Ka pai, ko riri anō tēnei tēpū.
Kia ora te whānau, any restrictions in terms of on any board is ridiculous. I did 9 years as chair of the trust board, and I was overwhelmed with the work, and I resigned. And the tribe at the time said, no, you come back on one. I said, no, I've done my 9 years service. You don't sack people who are doing a good job. All right? And so time limits is humbug. Go.
Why would you want to get rid of somebody that's done a good job? He's been there for 9 years. I don't believe that. I think he should be there longer till they're ready to retire. That's my kōrero anyway. Ngā mihi. Thank you.
Oh, kia ora. We've two thoughts, just to cover my back. I can see that if we support that our rangatahi coming through are developing talent, that they need to be given opportunities to assume responsibilities. And so in that light, we support the idea of a 9-year limit. And there was a concern about, one, that your nomination process has to specify the skill sets that you bring as a candidate for consideration, and then the other one is that you have to have different rules for appointments, but that skill set for both elections and for appointments should be provided to those who carry the responsibility, one of appointment, and to people who have to vote. So I don't know if that's clear.
9 years.
That was quick.
Agreed to 9 years.
Right. Who's going to be there?
Yeah, we thought it maybe is a bit long, and that, trying to encourage succession. And I wondered a little bit, 3 yearly elections, it's a costly exercise, maybe 4 yearly, would spread it a little bit more.
Tika tau, he whakaaro tino pai tēnā. We did look at extending to 4 years as an option. However, Tēnehene Nui Trust is not able to do that because it is a mio, a mandated iwi organisation under the Māori Fisheries Act, and the Māori Fisheries Act says that any person who's a governor on a mio has to be up for re-election after 3 years. So unless we get that legislation changed, some changes have recently gone through. They didn't change that bit, unfortunately. So at the moment we're limited to 3 years. Engari, he whakaro pai tērā, we did look at that very carefully. Ka pai. All right. I think from that last question you can see that there's a diversity of views, ne? So along the way we were hearing people comfortable, but on this question we had a couple of tables, stay at 9 years, a couple of tables, time limit is humbug, and then a table that sort of went both ways. Nā reira, he mahi uaua tēnei for the trustees to bring all of these whakaaro together, kia mutu i nei hui katoa. Hoi anō, that's why they're there. All right, so what is missing from the current model? This is our last open question. We have e rima meneti noiho, and we have heard lots of whakaaro about the kingitanga. If you have more whakaaro about that, we're welcome to whakapuaki mai. So if you want to respond to some of the suggestions about it, should it be an advisory role or a full trustee? If you want to respond to some of the suggestions about is it somebody that gets appointed by the kingitanga they choose, or is it somebody that Maniapoto chooses? Mena he whakaaro au. ki tērā. But also, we're really keen to see if there's anything else that you want to raise. So, for example, is there a view that there should be a seat for rangatahi, or should rangatahi put themselves up through the election process like other trustees? E rā momo whakaro. So, rima miniti, if you have some thoughts on anything other than the kingitanga, nau mai e rā whakaro, hui anō, ko tino rangona i tērā kaupapa. Yeah? Te community. Okay. Te community. Ka tatari ngā ringa wera kia tātou. Ka pai?
Like anything else that you think is missing from the current structure or the format, it's just when you mentioned about when they cut a few of those when we challenge their people, they spoke about they can handle this. So you basically now put the kiddy up too. And you challenge from the Toma and budget hoping we challenge the people. When you can do that, that's why we vote for representation of the congregation. The fathers don't understand. It's the knowledge between normal between what the word. We still have it but we are constantly,
ko tai te kōrero mai te whare kai, ko rite te kai. Nā reira, yeah, so we'll do a quick whip around, but just a reminder that Shah will be sending out the survey to everybody. So if you feel like you have more to say and you haven't been able to say it, or you want to explain or elaborate, ka whai wahi to respond to the survey if you prefer to do that, or get AI to do it for you. Bye.
And also please remember to sign in and include your email address so we can send you said survey. Ka pai?
Yep.
Kia ora anō. So we were in favour of appointing a kingitanga rep as part of the model. In terms of how we think that rep could be appointed, was heavily suggested by our kuia over here that should rest with Maniapoto. As we know in the past, it has been the decision of the ariki as to who that representative should be. But in a nutshell, we are supportive of a kingitanga rep. But I'm going to get it over to my tahine to speak to another.
So just the alignment of the election for Kuratau and Kurarere. At present they're different and we're running two elections, maybe not cost effective. The timing of the review, I think sometimes we are a bit short and we don't get to test the assumption of how the model works, whether it works or not, or doesn't work. And just around policy drives operation, and sometimes I just feel that that alignment is out in terms of reviews and how they structure our pathway forward. Kia ora.
Seems that I've written most of this. I should speak to it. So I'm just saying here. Stop dead naming our iwi. Bring back Maniapoto. And so that's to Te Nehe Nui is only just a portion of, in actual fact, our 3.6 million acres of land. Revisit a High Court challenge. Waikato Tainui Inc. has 220,000 acres of our land, Maniapoto, within their Raupatu settlement. We have 12 TWA campuses. We have the hospital. We have Ruakura. We have Hamilton Boys High. They're all Maniapoto whenua. Take note of the Crown's vicious attack during this period in time. Get all your family to vote on November the 7th. Keep active, te tiriti o Waitangi, te o Hakitapu, he whakapūtanga. Decorporatise the settlement. Find another way in which we can actually look at it and be very wary of AI. What else? Oh, do you want to talk to this piece here?
It's just a question. Do we have a te whare ariki o te hiuhiu rep? That was it.
Kia ora, the emerging opinion of this forum was that we've got to remember that whānau, kāinga and marae is the essence of who we are. That's what we identify with. So when we look at going to the future, because we're familiar with the past, we're living in the present, that we have to gather our thoughts as to what we want for our future, what are our desired aspirations, our key imperatives and our priorities. And there isn't much discussion across Māoridom, not just Maniapuru, but across Māoridom, about defining these things and how do we meet the challenges that are coming down the track, like AI. AI can be a great thing and it'll be a scary thing. But how do we as a people respond to that? How do we respond to the fact that, whether we like it or not, New Zealand's suffering from a growing ageing population, and that at the moment, when you look at the split between Maori descent and non-Māori, Pākehā, for every pensioner, there is 2.6 working people, that's age 18 to 64. For Māori, it's 6.7, so there's big differences. So there's some decisions that are going to be made that are going to suit the majority, which isn't us, that could adversely affect us. So if you translate that out into the pension, the super, or whatever they want to call it, it equates to roughly about 1,000 a fortnight, so 26,000 a year. So if they keep playing with that, the question is, how much would each kaumātua, each person over 65, have to have as an investment fund to yield the 26,000, the pension every year? It means every kaumātua would have to have a minimum of $540,000 invested, yielding 5%. So they're only numbers. But I'm trying to alert you, we've got an issue coming down the track that we're oblivious to, and it won't affect us, we'll be out of it. But our mokopunas, if we really care about our children and our mokopunas, we've got some bloody big issues coming down the track that we don't even talk about. So that's why I think probably missing from not so much the model, but missing from our thinking is, what is the Maniapuru economy look like? Because money does impact on all aspects of our living, and I'm concerned that we put too much pressure on our settlement. There was some work done in 2015. We looked at 3 elements of the Maniapuru economy, which was 1, the settlement, which everyone had their eyes on. 2 is the land, and 3 was the people. When the numbers were crunched, the settlement equated to about 1 to 3% of Maniapuru's economy, and the unrealised potential of our people was 20 times what the settlement was. But when you come to the reality, now we've got it and we know what its yield is, that works out 60 times. So all our aspirations as people and what we want for our mokopunas, we're focusing on 1% of our economy. I think we've got to grow up. The future is in whānau, in our households, and it's scary, but I can't live my life saying and not sharing what I know from the figures. So sorry to say that, but I think our Maniapuru tribal economy, we should have pictures of what that is and how each of it's performing. So, yeah, kia ora.
I think a positive attitude would be to look at the rangiā Ōpia economy before we were invaded. We were already home, we were already doing it.
Because we were successful.
We were too successful.
That's what they expect.
Tēnā tātou. Some of our whakaaro around our table around this pātai was the introduction or inclusion of a rangatahi intern seat. Some other kōrero, not so much about the model, but some other kōrero that came out was around the importance of accountability back to the people. So hei tauira kura tau representatives come back to their whare and speak to their rōpū whakahaere members who each represent marae, and then go back and feed that information back to their pā, to their marae, and then back up to the table again. Whereas the kurarere seats don't necessarily, and I could be wrong, but don't necessarily have people to come back to report to. Some of the other kōrero that came out as well was around the fact that we're trying to create a future for Maniapoto, but using a Pākehā structure to determine or help us determine what mana motuhake and tino rangatiratanga looks like. That's the kōrero of our group. My little 5 cents is that I would like to make a recommendation that there be 2 kura ariki seats considered, one for Te Whare Tapu o Te Heuheu and Pōtatau, but rather than look at them as whare ariki, they be received more so as mokopuna or uri of Maniapoto himself, and some of the thinking around 2 kura ariki is because the current, or both whare are the longest standing Māori leadership structures that still exist within te iwi Māori, te ao Māori today, and just another pātai around there was no discussion on how or where kurarere or how kurarere seats are selected. So we've spoken about all the other seats, but nothing specific on kurarere. And then because this hui is about the review of the deed, but we're only focusing on the structure at the moment, the pātai is when do we get to discuss the other parts of the deed, and if we can get more information about them before we arrive on the night. Thanks, Sam.
I'd like to stay with the Kingitanga rep and nominated by our people. However, if Te Ariki Nui decides that who she wants, no more said.
Who's up? Yeah, we support the previous speaker, but one thing I think was my thinking, the cost that will keep expanding, I suppose.
Right. Oh, well, ko rangona I rā kōrero. So, kore te kai, nā reira, me hikina te hui, me haere ki te kai. Me aha, me karakia a Dougie.
Can I just say something? I really need to stand. But I'm absolutely astounded that in this whare, you talk about there being only 2 ariki. Look to the wall here. This whare represents our arikitanga as Maniapoto. We'll never we will never subjugate ourselves to Waikato, nor will we subjugate ourselves to Tū Whare Toa. The reason why the Kingitanga exists is because of Maniapoto, and especially Ngāti Maniapoto, and especially this whare. I do not want to hear from rangatangi that they do not understand who they belong to inside this whare. I do, Wha. Well, then you take the lesson. Look to that wall over there, because those are our ariki. This house is a house of resistance. This house was built on the house of resistance. We were the most rebellious and fair iwi. And I do not want to, I will not stand here as Ngāti Rora, as a mokapuna of Taonui Hikaka and Naipu, of George and John, and be insulted. Don't you ever assume that Maniapoto does not hold arikitanga. We do. As long as the whare is standing, that is who we are. I've gone after Rahui Papa, who said there's nothing between Waikato and Tū Whare Toa. I don't expect to come home and listen to that.
Kia ora tātou, i o tātou wānanga i tēnei pō, nā runga anō i te whakaaro, e rongo ana tātou i te kakara o nau mai tuarua, kia haere tahi tātou ki roto rā, nō reira, ko hiki tā tātou hui, e mihi nui atu ana kia koe e te tuahine, te ao pare, e arataki nei a tātou i roti ngā whakawhitiwhiti whakaaro, ngā whakawhitiwhiti kōrero, koutou e mātakitaki mai ana, e hono mai ana i ngā hauewha o te motu, tēnei te mihi e kuima, e koro mā tātou, e titiro ana ki te pai tawhiti i tēnei pō, tēnā koutou, kia tau te rangi māria kia tātou, kia ino i tātou. E pā e tō mātou atua i te wāhi ngaro, te tapu o ngā tapu, te mana o ngā mana. Tēnei mātou e koropiko atu nei, e tuku nei o mātou whakamoimiti, i o manaakitanga katoa i uhia mai rā ki runga i te tāhuhu o tō mātou whare, kia wānanga tahi ai, kia kōrero tahi ai mātou mo te anamata o tēnei o ngā tarahiti. Tēnei ka inoe atu nei kia koe kia manaakitia, te pani te pauaru te rawakore. O mātou kuia o mātou karaua e noho nei i raro i te tuanui o tēnei o ngā whare, me o mātou kaumātua e noho mai nā ki o rātou kāinga maha i roto i tēnei pō. Tēnei ka inoe atu nei kia koe i roti te ngā kaumahaki i te mea, ko koe te tīmatanga, ko koe hoki te whakamutunga o ngā mea katoa. Tūturu o whiti whakamaua kia tīna, haumi e hui e, kia ora katoa. Kia tau kia tātou katoa, te ata whai o tō tātou ariki ai Kūiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhi ngatahitanga ki te wairua tapu, ake, 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 āmi.
We have